So they're talking about AOC's bad faith attack on Jill Stein. I already made a video on this, and my conclusion was AOC's correct. She doesn't need to go on Instagram Live to talk about Jill Stein, but she is correct in saying that the Green Party serves zero purpose. They're not organizing for any real political power. It seems somewhat predatory because they have been doing the Green Party thing for many years now. Jill Stein in specific has, and there has been no movement, no growth of power, no nothing. So it's a little bit weird that they come in every election and try to get the Democrat to lose, and they don't do anything else. There are parties who are third parties, like the Working Families Party you'll see in New York, Philadelphia, and in other cities, where there's actual organizing to get power in cities. That is really cool. The Green Party does not do that. And we already know that Cornel West, for example, I know there's Cornel West and Jill Stein running as independents. They're being funded by far-right funders because they're useful. The term is useful idiots. Helping Russia beat Kamala Harris. That's the only thing they're doing. The Green Party, and I don't know what Cornel West Party is, the only function they're serving is helping Republicans right now.
It is my immense pleasure to be joined today on Bad Faith Podcast by Sabrina Salvati, aka Sabby Sabs. You know her from what I think is one of the best streaming programs on the left. Welcome back, Sabby.
Hi, Bree. Thanks so much for having me back on.
You were the first person that popped in my head when I thought about tackling the kind of internecine battles on the left news of the week this week, which has been sort of all-consuming, at least on the internet. I know the internet isn't real life, and mostly these episodes are substantive in nature, but this one I think has a little bit of a mix of salacious online, whatever you want to call it, and real substantive news. And of course, what I'm referencing is the back and forth that happened between AOC from one of her IG stories and which was about Jill Stein, which was then subsequently responded to.
You're just showing up once every 4 years to do that. You're not serious. You're not to me, it does not read as authentic. It reads as predatory.
Jill here. I'm about to board, but very quickly, I just wanted to thank AOC Pelosi so very much for her very
AOC Pelosi?
authentic concern about growing green power. Clearly, AOC is the attack dog du jour, and the Democrats are running scared, and they should be, because who wants to support a genocide? Who wants to vote for a genocide? And if there's anything that's predatory here, it's saying that your candidate is working tirelessly for a ceasefire when actually they are actively funding and arming genocide and actually refusing to even consider an arms embargo, which would bring the genocide to a screeching halt.
Now, what we can say about the real life world right now, from what Jill Stein says here, Joe Biden's administration does not reflect exactly what Kamala would do. Saying that AOC is supporting an ongoing genocide, she is complicit in that, saying that AOC is going to support that, and there's no talk of any ceasefire or arms embargo. That is true with the Biden admin. But what's really important to pay attention to is there are many signs behind the scenes that Kamala is going to change course pretty aggressively if she gets into office. If she doesn't, then I'll be wrong. But there are many signs as far as who will be working as Secretary of State in Kamala's administration, how they would approach the issue of Israel and Palestine, and also knowing that Kamala has been a positive influence in the Biden admin for a while now. She's vice president. She's not able to come out and just speak against the president and push for a policy that the current administration is not pursuing, especially when that policy is going to hurt her election chances. Right now, saying that you are going to give an arms embargo to Israel after you've had hostages killed in the past week, that is essentially throwing away the entire election. When it comes to morality surrounding the issue of Palestine and Israel, the only thing that matters is what is going to save the most lives and bring this crisis to a conclusion as soon as possible. And the only way to do that is through Kamala Harris getting in office. And I know there's many people on Twitter saying, we're at genocide versus genocide. Why vote for a genocide? Jill Stein's saying that too. But the online perspective of essentially, we're already at max genocide. You know, it's max atrocities right now. Bro, nothing right now is close to how bad it can get. There are still millions of people who are praying Donald Trump does not get into office. The man who uses Palestinian as a slur, and the man who's going to tell Israel, finish the job. He's going to push for extinction. At least the Biden administration, with all their faults, is serving as a mediator, pushing in the opposite direction of where Israel wants to go. That's a Biden thing. Biden's terrible on this issue. I think Kamala will be better.
AOC, who's supposed to be in leadership of the Democratic Party, it's amazing if she doesn't know about the anti-democratic tactics and strategies that the Democratic Party uses to crush and silence political opposition. They've been hiring an army of lawyers to throw competitors like me off the ballot. They've been hiring infiltrators and saboteurs and publicly post.
A question from chat. Okay, if people would never ever vote for Kamala and the undemocratic party, but would vote for Jill Stein or Trump, or not vote at all, which would you rather have them do, essentially? I would rather someone not morally posture as caring about an issue and caring about people while actively advocating online for, essentially advocating online for conclusion that would lead to worse outcomes for these groups of people. So saying you are pro-Palestinian, saying you are pro-LGBT, saying you are pro-BIPOC communities, if you say you are pro any of those things and you do not vote Kamala Harris, you should stop saying that you are, a super strong activist. If you're in a state that doesn't matter and you want to make your vote for Jill Stein, cool. But if you're in Pennsylvania and you claim to care about all these causes and you go out and vote for Jill Stein, then stop saying you care about these causes or adjust your worldview to look at reality, get off Twitter, and focus on what's happening to real people.
Posting job advertisements for those positions. They've been hijacking our public funding in order to keep us off the ballot, and they actually impersonated the Greens to throw us off the ballot in 22 in the Senate race for North Carolina, for example. How is that not fraud and election interference? Also, what's predatory here is stealing the signature issue of the Greens. Our Green New Deal launched in 2010, appropriated by AOC as her signature issue in 2018 without a mention of where it came from.
Okay, if you have an issue you care about, so for example, the Green New Deal, why is Jill Stein talking about not getting credit for having that idea? Who cares about getting credit? Many of the best things to ever happen in humanity came from people who you'll never hear their names because there's always a politician or someone at the top who's going to take credit for that. And AOC doesn't even get credit for it. All of the things we've gotten done in like the Inflation Reduction Act and American Rescue Plan and all of the policies we have done in America that are green, even with Biden barely having not even a majority, but without the Democrats having that much of government, much of the progress we actually saw done at the federal government level is because of politicians like AOC being more pragmatic. With the Green Party strategy, we do not get any initiatives that were passed in the last 4 years favoring unions, favoring a green economy, favoring any of this transitional process to get to a better world that's focused more on labor and renewable energy. There's a balance in politics where you have these ideals and you have the political reality, and you need someone who can bring those two things together and push in the right direction. If you focus only on the ideals, you are going to abandon the political reality. That's what Jill Stein gets people to do, and that's ultimately why Jill Stein is extremely damaging. I retweeted the video of Jill Stein responding to AOC, but she liked it because she thought I was supporting her. I was really just retweeting it so I can talk about it and say why Jill Stein's wrong. But you need to talk about the political reality of a lot of this. Bernie Sanders understands that. Many of the most successful movements in American history showed some level of pragmatism.
Abby, I know that you have seen it. I know that you've responded to it. Tell the audience who might not have, we'll obviously insert a clip here, but like, what do you...
Yeah, that's a good point, Cloud. The question was not worth answering critically because anyone who really cares about these issues would not ask that question. They would not even entertain it. They wouldn't be like making dumb statements about like, would you rather me vote for Trump or vote for Stein? Like, grow up. If you care about these things, you either care about these things or you don't.
Make of this?
I think that AOC is doing what the Democrat leadership wants her to do. I think she said those comments about Jill Stein because of what internal polling is revealing, which is that it is very clear that Kamala Harris and Jill Stein are tied for the Muslim vote. And
I saw this poll. Does anyone have any information on this? Is Jill Stein tied with Kamala Harris for Muslim voters?
as much as people say that third party is just a spoiler, they never get anywhere, I've never seen this happen before. So what does that say about what the Democratic Party has done for the Muslim community, especially considering the genocide in Gaza? What does that tell you? I think that sends a strong message. So I'm pretty sure she got her marching orders from Democrat leadership to go after Jill Stein. I think that has backfired because I'm seeing people tell me that they actually weren't going to vote at all, but now they actually want to go out and support Jill Stein just to push back at AOC and the Democratic Party and what they've done to third party trying to get.
Okay, yeah. The question you're asking again, you did not answer the question. Former Burners are now Trumpers and Steiners. If you ever really cared about anything Bernie Sanders said and you now support Donald Trump, do you understand why that's not a question I care to answer? Your convictions and your principles and your beliefs were never real. If you go from Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump, you're just mad. You're just mad at the world. You're mad at the establishment. And by the way, talking about the establishment and politics, politics is not fun. Politics is not fair. Politics is not clean. We want it to be better. We want it to be cleaner. We want it to be a system that works as intended, but it's not. And if your mentality is either the political system's going to work perfectly or I'm going to try to burn it to the ground, then you are sacrificing so many individuals in that process. We are not going to have a perfect government. We understand that. We understand it's not good. We don't love this situation that we're in between our presidential picks every 4 years. But that's when you look at politics as a whole. The presidential races is like ironically one of the most and least important things you can do as an activist. The real organizing happens between presidential election years. But right now, organizing will not be possible under Donald Trump, and voters will not be caring about any real issues if Donald Trump's in office. The main story will be Donald Trump. We have not talked about healthcare policy in, I think, 12 years because Donald Trump does not allow us to talk about healthcare policy because he's a circus, and that's all people want to talk about if he's in the picture. Get Trump out of the picture, and then replace Democrats up and down the ballot, then you can see real change. You can't just wait for a presidential election to make your protest vote and expect change will actually happen.
Get on the ballot in this country. I think that AOC, unfortunately, has become very cocky. I think
I'd vote for Trump before I'd vote for Kamala. You live in an undemocratic bubble. Okay, so you would vote for Trump, who wants to extinct Palestinians and told Israel to finish the job, and wants to quadruple funding, and wants to tell Israel to go further, and wants to start more wars, versus Kamala, who has pushed the Biden admin to be more sympathetic to Palestinians, who has come out for a ceasefire, and also signaled that she would be open to arms embargo, but she just can't do that now because she's vice president, and it's not politically viable, but she is giving signals that she would throw her weight behind that, because she has people surrounding her that are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. You'd rather Donald Trump, who literally wants to have a Muslim ban, versus Kamala Harris. Okay.
she has developed quite a bit of an ego. And I think we need to look at what has happened here with the Justice Democrats movement. Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman have been pushed out largely by AIPAC money. I would think that AOC would focus on that. Maybe focus on trying to stop AIPAC from removing your comrades from Congress. Maybe you should focus on that. So there's that. But if you notice, AIPAC did not put up large money against AOC in her reelection. And that's because she was willing to bend the knee in a sense. She made the webinar conflating.
Also, AOC, it would not work against her. She would have kept her seat no matter how much money would go against her. That's also another reason.
Anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, which is part of the reason why DSA decided to unendorse her. That's part of it.
Yeah, that's true, Cloud, as well. Bernie being willing to drop out of 2016 and 2020. And I know many Bernie supporters got mad and said, you know, I want nothing to do with the process. But Bernie campaigning for Hillary and then campaigning for Biden is what led to many of the amazing things we saw that were actually passed during the Biden administration. And Bernie did get a seat at the table, influencing all of this legislation. And Bernie himself knows when he was campaigning, Medicare for all and Green New Deal and, the unionizing that he wants to see is probably not obtainable exactly how he wants it. But Bernie understands how to give ideal visions to the public while also working within the political reality to try and make some of those goals be achieved through the political process, through passing laws, through doing real things to help real people. And I wouldn't expect someone like Jill Stein to understand that, who never had the opportunity, who never understood the pressure of trying to form coalitions within government, in a corrupt system, in a system where money dominates everything. The fact that Bernie Sanders has been able to influence this system as much as he's been able to as an independent who does not take big donors money, who does not have super PACs, someone who actively speaks out against them. The fact Bernie's had so much influence in the system being who he is shows that he's a master at what he's doing. And AOC is reaching that status of pragmatism and affecting real government and pushing it in a good direction.
But AOC has decided to, again, go along with Democrat leadership because she doesn't want to become a Cori Bush or Jamal Bowman. She wants to stay where she is. But there were a number of lies that AOC said in that criticism of Jill Stein as well. And I've been critical of the Green Party, to be clear. I've had these conversations before on my show with Green Party candidates running on the local level and with Green Party politicians. And, contrary to what AOC says, there have been Green Party candidates that have won on the local level. In 2022, there were a number of them that won in California. Most people didn't cover it, but they do win on the local level. Now, obviously, there are improvements that
Okay, if you can win in the most socialist, progressive, liberal towns in America, that's cool. But we're talking about city governments in large cities and influencing policy, even if it's Los Angeles or New York or Philadelphia. But anyone who seriously wants to organize as a third party is never going to go into the Green Party. They're going to go working families. They're just not going to go green for all the reasons that we laid out.
Do need to be made. I've told this to Green Party members before. The marketing needs to be improved. There needs to be ads. You need to improve your website. You need to improve your presence. But all of those things also
you need to improve your political strategy and the way you talk about politics as well. Going into a system and calling the Democratic Party the Democrat Party and saying how they are evil and you need to protect your comrades, that is going to scare voters away. I don't care if you're the most far-left communist in the world. If you use that language, you are asking for your political movement to not last.
Require money and a lot of funding, which is something that the Green Party just does not have. But I think that Jason Call has been very willing to listen to criticisms and how to improve. And I think that going forward, you might see something.
So this is the big picture that you see about Jill Stein that's brought up when Russia is discussed. I'm pretty sure this was in 2015. So you see at the table here, former Deputy Prime Minister of Czech Republic, and then we have Putin's Deputy Chief of Staff, Putin's then Chief of Staff, Vladimir Putin, President of Russia, Putin's spokesman, Michael Flynn, and Michael Flynn at that table as well, someone who's from the U.S. and someone who's called for a coup of the U.S. government aggressively, also a fascist. And then you have sitting at the same table, smiling, enjoying drinks, enjoying this amazing food, smiling like she is, for someone who spends her life talking about like morality and participating in genocides and not bowing down to authoritarian, anti-democratic or undemocratic leaders. It's really weird to see Jill Stein in this setting. And, giving all benefit of the doubt, giving all benefit of anything, how do you end up at this table? How do you do it? What way do you get to the table that's in this picture? Just like, I don't even like, I know we should look for more information, but just off the vibes of it, why are you there?
Different.
There's a lot in there that's really good, and I want to follow up on. One of the first things you mentioned was that this seems to be a call that was put out to respond to pushback
Thank you for joining the stream. Please drop a like. We're having some heated conversations with communists, I think. I'm not really sure.
To be a call that was put out to respond to push back against Jill Stein. That seems sort of coordinated. We saw some maybe early evidence of this with the Jamie Harrison, DNC chair, tweet to Jill Stein. I don't know if you remember that. I think it was maybe a week or two ago, in which she had responded, I think, to a Joe Biden tweet that said Google the Project 2025, and Jill Stein had said, you know, Google genocide in Gaza, and then Jamie Harrison responded like Putin's puppet, and then there was a whole exchange over that. But then subsequent to that, it does really feel like not just this AOC response, but across at least the internet.
Well, yeah, it does seem weird considering the picture we just showed. We just showed that picture, but also what's going to happen when Donald Trump's in office with Putin and Ukraine, with Russia and Ukraine. And I know Putin came out with the statement today or yesterday, whatever. By the way, whoever saw Putin say he's endorsing Kamala Harris because of her laugh, and, you know, seeing his body language and saying that, if you truly believe Putin is supporting Harris for president, you don't, okay, I don't know what to say about you, but you are not reading body language correctly. You are not reading the situation correctly. Putin would not support Kamala, who wants to keep on funding Ukraine and supporting Ukraine. He would not support her over Trump, the useful idiot, Trump, who wants to take all funding away from Ukraine. Putin's obviously doing that to throw another story in the media because the Russian funding of Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and all that was brought to the light this week. And Putin wanted to steal the news headline. Anyone who really thinks he endorsed Kamala Harris, please do more research. And I mean, like, I don't even know. I don't want to say do your own research because I don't know what you might find if you do that. But just like watch the video, think about the actual policies of both candidates. He's not really endorsing Kamala.
Internet sphere, there has been a voluminous pushback. That seems like a spike of sorts that, as you alluded to, does seem to be perhaps correlated to this new CARE study, which does seem to suggest that both Kamala Harris and Jill Stein are tied with respect to Muslim voters. And that, combined with the most recent polls, which show Kamala Harris behind in every swing state, including Michigan, which, as we know, has the highest proportion of Muslim voters in the United States of America, it does seem to be evidence of a sort of panic coming from the Democrats.
That's 100% true.
I'm pretty sure Cornel West is beating Stein in the polls. So if there was a coordinated, I feel like AOC was saying what she actually meant. If there was a coordinated push to go against the third parties, I feel like Cornel West is getting better numbers. Am I wrong? Isn't Cornel West polling higher than Stein right now?
I can tell you I've spoken to voters on the ground. I'm going to have another Black voter panel Thursday evening. But the consensus that I'm hearing from people on the ground is not what you're seeing in the polls. The Kamala hype and the honeymoon period, I think, is over. Particularly people in lower income neighborhoods are not drawn to Kamala Harris. This is what has been said to me in person. They don't feel like this is going to be someone that's going to implement significant change to improve their communities. They look at her and they see a female Barack Obama. Oh, we've heard this before. We know where this is going. They don't feel like she has a true connection, in particular, to the Black community. And so there are a number of criticisms there that
Who are we talking about? Are we talking about like one-off person that you spoke to? Because you can find anyone that has any opinion, but the numbers are overwhelmingly in Kamala's direction. And Democrats in general, the less money you make, the more poor you are, the more likely you are to vote Democrat. So I want to know where all these stats are from. If anyone has verification of the poll that says that Stein is tied with Kamala when it comes to Muslim voters, please let me know. I'm looking for it right now on the side. And also, I'm looking at the numbers of Cornel West versus Stein. And Cornel West, Kyle Kulinski did the video about him getting funding from far-right donors. So I want to get a good landscape of what we're actually looking at here and verify some of the claims when it comes to polling. Please drop a like, by the way, if you're on the stream. Thank you for watching.
I think the polls are just not reflecting. And I also
is my mic too quiet? Good good volume? Let me know that as well.
There are a number of
Seems a little
criticisms
quiet.
there that I think the polls are just not reflecting. And I also want people to understand that polls are really supposed to either inspire you or to deflate you and such as. So, for example, if you see a number of polls that show that Kamala is surging, well, that's supposed to inspire you. Whether you're on the left or the right, that's supposed to inspire you to say, oh, okay, well, I wasn't going to vote, but now I may want to go out and vote. That doesn't mean that's how the majority of American voters feel. We have to.
Okay, the same person in chat. Keep voting for the Dem, the party that has moved from hating Bush to praising Bush and getting endorsements from Cheney and all that. LOL, this is not a joke though. Okay, Donald Trump is running the most fascistic, far-right, ultra-nationalist, authoritarian campaign in probably U.S. history, or at least U.S. history in the past 80 years, since World War II, since there was a huge Nazi movement during World War II in support of Hitler. This is the biggest far-right movement we've seen. Trump is literally not even talking about policies. He's just sharing to his Instagram and his Truth Social and whatever pictures of non-white people saying, watch out, they're coming to your communities. Like, the pictures Trump is sharing right now is absolutely deranged. He still is denying elections. He's talking about not having elections in the future. He's praising Putin and Viktor Orban and every other authoritarian dictator globally. The fact that Cheney came out to endorse Harris and Liz Cheney did as well does not say anything about them being good. It says how bad Donald Trump is, to the point where even these corporatists, neocon, whatever, are coming out against Trump because they understand what he is really bringing. And if you think Trump is not a war hawk and you think they're against Trump because he's against the war, I have a good video for you, because Trump increased our military activity a lot over Obama, especially drone strikes.
Remember, these voting populations, these polls are significantly small. So always keep that in mind. And it could be possible that Kamala Harris could win the popular vote and lose the electoral college, similarly to what
I would put money that Kamala wins the popular vote. I don't know why anyone wouldn't do that. If you had a chance to bet on it, Kamala wins the popular vote 100 out of 100 times. I know the odds are technically like 60-40, but I cannot think of a scenario in which he did not win the popular vote nationwide. I think her popular vote chance is like 68%, and her electoral college chance is like 40%, which is wild that we have that system, but you know.
What we saw happen with Hillary Clinton. I remember Hillary Clinton, according to the polls, she was going to beat Donald Trump, and it started to get closer and closer as we got to the election day, and then she lost the electoral college. So I think that the reason why you're starting to see more people shift away, part of it is the genocide in Gaza, where people said, I'm not going to vote for the Biden administration.
Here's a good video right here. I saw this earlier. All right. About Donald Trump not being a war hawk, because we have this conversation a lot.
I keep meeting people in left-wing circles, in Muslim
Yeah, this is a little quiet.
I keep meeting people
can I
in
boost this
left-wing
up a little bit?
circles, in Muslim circles, in Arab American circles, who tell me that they're voting for Donald Trump because he isn't a hawk. He didn't start any new wars. He killed fewer Muslims than Democratic presidents do. This argument is doing my head in, because it just isn't true. It's total nonsense. So when it comes to Trump and war and killing Muslims in particular, it's time for a debunking. Number one, he didn't start any new wars, they say. Well, it's not like he didn't try. We just got lucky. In his first year in office, he picked a fight with nuclear-armed North Korea. He called Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man, called him short and fat, and threatened him with fire and fury. Trump's own Homeland Security officials were so shit-scared that he'd start a major war with North Korea that they had multiple meetings to prepare for a nuclear attack, a North Korean nuclear strike on American soil. In his last year in office, Trump illegally assassinated Iran's top general, Qasem Soleimani, via a drone strike. And the only reason we didn't have a full-on war with Iran is because the Iranians chose to show restraint and...
But Trump didn't start any new wars. Trump is isolationist, and he's a dove. Trump's a dove. Trump hates war. Trump would never do anything irrational and violent. Trump would never push for anything like that.
Not respond in kind. Had Iran, say, assassinated General Mark Milley, America's top general at that time, we would have been instantly in World War III.
Well, now Donald Trump would probably be happy about that. with Donald Trump's language about our current U.S. military generals that he wants to replace with his loyalists.
General at that time, we would have been instantly in World War III as a result of Trump's actions. Let's be clear about that. In fact, Milley says Trump wanted to attack Iran after he lost the 2020 election. Trump also reportedly wanted to attack Venezuela. And now for his second term, he's considering airstrikes on Mexican soil. How's that for a new war? Not far away in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah. All the talk from conservative circles about wanting to send the military into Mexico and like airstrikes and all of that, I can't even really describe what that would create as a conflict. It would be, yeah. Like, let's make sure Trump doesn't win. Yeah, I don't even want to think about the repercussions of that, but
on our own southern border. By the way, this very specific and annoying claim that he was the first president to start no new war, that's just not true. Former President and Nobel Peace Laureate Jimmy Carter would like a word. And look, this whole not starting new wars thing is a distraction from the fact that Trump expanded and escalated pretty much every war that he inherited from Barack Obama. Remember, Obama famously didn't bomb the Assad government in Syria, but Trump did in 2017 and again in 2018. Obama didn't drop the single biggest bomb on Afghanistan, the mother of all bombs, the Moab, but Trump did. In fact, the number of Afghan civilians killed by airstrikes on Trump's watch went up 330%. And as writer Ben Krause points out, quote, there were more civilian deaths from airstrikes in Somalia under Trump than under Bush and Obama combined. Trump.
Yeah, I can drop a link in the chat. And yeah, this just shows you how war is viewed and how conflicts are viewed is often by how they're captured in media and also for Americans. So during Trump's presidency, did any Americans, are there American boots on the ground? That kind of thing. So if there's airstrikes, I know the left pays attention to this, but the American public as a whole and the right, when they say Trump started no new wars, they really don't care about what Trump did to escalate conflicts all over the world. They care about the nationalist side of that. But yeah, I'll drop this link in the chat. It's on X if you look up. I know Kyle Kalinske shared it.
Also oversaw a 200% increase in airstrike deaths in Iraq and Syria. Number two, well, at least he wasn't a drone president, they say, like Obama was. Look, Obama was indeed a drone president who killed a lot of innocent people with drone strikes. But you know who was a bigger drone president? Donald Trump. Yeah, you just haven't heard about it because much of our media is a joke and because both Muslims and the left, for some reason, have given Trump a pass on this issue. Here are the facts that you need to know. Donald Trump did more drone strikes in his first 2 years in office than Barack Obama carried out over 8 years in office. In fact, Trump didn't just do more drone strikes, he loosened all restrictions on drone strikes, making it even easier to kill innocent civilians. And it was Joe Biden, for all his sins on Gaza, who came along and almost ended the drone war without much fanfare and without much credit.
Yeah, Kyle Kalinske said Jill Stein is great if you want to vote in a non-swing state. Sure. But Kyle really likes anyone who says the policies he likes. I don't think Kyle's now being more pragmatic, but you can just tell Kyle you like the policies he likes, and he'll be like, yeah, Medicare for all, good, good, good. Green New Deal, good, good, good. Kyle still is in the middle of pragmatism and idealism. It matters. There's more that matters to political movements than just being correct. Being effective is your moral responsibility.
Number three, well, at least Trump didn't do a genocide like Biden did in Gaza. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. In Yemen. How have we just forgotten the Yemen genocide? With tens of thousands of deaths, thousands of kids killed, and a man-made famine. It started on Obama's watch, yes. But in 2018, it was President Trump who oversaw the Yemen war's deadliest and most violent year up until that point. It was Trump who was in charge when a US-made bomb was dropped on a school bus full of Yemeni kids. And it was Trump, like Biden with Israel, who bypassed Congress to get weapons and bombs to his pal MBS in Saudi Arabia, which were then used to kill even more innocent Yemenis en masse. So when you say Trump didn't do a genocide, didn't mass kill Muslims, you're erasing the people of Yemen, and you should really be ashamed of yourself. To be clear, Trump did try and start new wars, expanded old wars, increased drone strikes, and helped do a genocide in the Middle East. He also supported the invasion of Iraq, wanted America to steal Iraq's oil, and pardoned and praised American soldiers convicted of war crimes in Iraq. He's the president who ramped up the defense budget and surrounded himself with neocon hawks like Mike Pompeo, Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, and John Bloody Bolton. And he's the presidential candidate now who is surrounding himself again with hawks. China hawks, who would love nothing more than a new American war with the nuclear-armed People's Republic. So, Donald the Dove? No, that's ridiculous. It's perhaps the biggest, most annoying, and most demonstrable lie in American politics right now. Don't fall for it.
Yes, don't fall for it. Don't let your hate of Democrats push you into supporting fascism. Trust me, it's not going to go well.
Kamala Harris is a part of that administration. Her interview that she just had made it very clear she's not going to condition weapons or arms to Israel, not even some of it. And that's what Dana Bash was asking her, some of it. So I think that that's part of it. But another part of it.
Kamala is not going to come out and say that right now. Signs behind the scenes are saying that she would consider doing that, but she's not going to say right now something that's extremely unpopular with the American public after there were hostages killed, and she's not going to go against the Biden administration. That's just not going to happen. But everything else we know about the situation and about politics shows not only will Kamala be much better than Trump, but she'll be far better than Biden as well. I don't want to keep on hearing this over and over and over again and keep on acting like Trump's not a real thing and the repercussions of Trump are not a real thing. Stop acting like he's not really going to be doing all this bad stuff.
It is what I've been hearing from voters on the ground for during the Biden administration is that the economy is not working out for them. They're not making gains within lower income communities, particularly people that fall into that bracket where they're not poor enough to receive SNAP benefits or like Section 8 housing, which also has a wait list, by the way. But they're not making enough money that they're able to put aside a savings account and they're able to save up for a home.
Yes, and Democrats are addressing those problems directly with actual policies, and Donald Trump will make those problems much, much worse. Even if some communities or some individuals think that Trump's going to help them because he gave out one stimulus check a few years ago, that is not true. Trump's policies are going to add... And the thing about debt spending, I don't really care about debt spending as long as we get a return on investment. And that's the typical thinking that we use with like modern monetary theory. And that's what Kamala responded in her interview. Like, as long as we get return on investment, it's good. But if we're going to go in debt, and Trump wants to go 5 times in more debt as a country than Kamala does, I want to go in debt for our people. Trump wants to give all of those tax cuts to billionaires. That's the kind of debt Trump wants to do. That's what he wants to add to the deficit. Only deficit spend if it's going to help people. If it's going to help, working class individuals. If it's going to help the American economy, not just to do it for billionaire tax cuts like Trump wants.
Or they can afford to have an unexpected expense. That particular group of the population, we're talking about the working poor, the people who a lot of times are waiting tables or they have 2 jobs. Those people feel like they have been ignored and left out. And of course,
and also on all of these topics, literally everything they're talking about with the child tax credits, minimum wage increases, anything you can think of with working rights and unions, the PRO Act, anything. Republicans are the reason it's not getting done. Stop talking like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are in office not doing anything. Republicans are blocking all of these votes, and there's a vote for almost everything you talk about. Almost everything you talk about, there's a vote for it, and Republicans are there saying, no way, we are not going to help people. And then they are going to go around and say, look what I did when they voted against a policy that is helpful to people. Stop acting like Kamala has been in office and just has chosen to not help working class people. Being the first president to walk on a picket line is actually a big deal for Joe Biden. That's actually a really big deal. Union support right now is at a 50-year high, I'm pretty sure, at 70% favorability. Those are huge movements. Stop acting like Democrats are the problem here.
I think a big complaint I've heard from people is that the grocery store prices are still an issue for them.
Yeah, I think all of that is really important to note. What seems to be different, because there do tend to be a lot of usually non-voters who don't vote because they don't feel like there's any material benefit for them. They don't see a lot of difference when there's a R or a D in office. What does seem to be shifting and potentially causing some panic among the Democratic Party is that instead of kind of not registering ideologically as non-voters, there is this percentage now that does seem to, either out of spite or because they genuinely are interested in her economic and other kind of social proposals, are going to affirmatively vote for Jill Stein. And you alluded to this earlier, that there are these people who were tweeting things like, well, I wasn't going to vote anyway, but now I'm definitely.
Connect it back to the issue. Connect it back to the issue. Don't just talk about the cute little social media movement voting for Jill Stein. Connect it back to the issue with millions of Americans losing health care when Trump gets in office. Connect it back to how voting Jill Stein is going to increase the material or improve the material conditions of these voters.
Definitely going to vote for Jill Stein. And you can interpret that as sort of like spite voting that's not really substantive. And, you know, maybe we shouldn't take that seriously.
Yeah, that's a good point. Talking about all of the tax cuts Trump gave the billionaires and all of the stuff we could be doing with that. And I saw a sign on the side of a highway saying this road was paid for by the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And it really makes me a little bit annoyed and upset that Democrats are not more shameless with this. When something good is done because of Democrats, I want them to own it. One huge part of government is when you do good things in government, make sure people know why and how things work. We have an entire country with extremely complex infrastructure, with water. Well, we have like 99% of our communities having clean water, sewage, all these networks of, even though we have bad public transportation, all of these networks still function together. Huge bridges that cost billions and trillions of dollars. Make sure people understand what is happening with money, how much things actually cost. I don't think people realize that one bridge for 2 cars that stretches 20 feet costs like $50,000 to build or something like that. I think putting up one red light, I don't know, a traffic light, I mean, putting up one traffic light, I'm pretty sure it costs like $20,000. And it's amazing that we've been able to do what we've been able to do with government, and people take it for granted because we don't have the education necessary to see, like, this is what we do through collectivism. This is what we do through coming together as communities to build things.
But I do think there's also a little bit of kind of, I welcome your hatred sort of attitude about it, where there's something about the offense from the Democratic Party in this moment.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Cloud. The GOP being one vote away from getting rid of Obamacare and like John McCain saving it. And everyone's complaining about like, oh, Democrats are supporting barely anything better than Obamacare, maybe a public option, but they dropped that too. Do you realize that Republicans wanted to get rid of literally everything? Do you realize how far right America is as a country? We need to be working in all of our communities to message on these topics. If we can get everyone to understand why the Affordable Care Act is a good thing, why expanding healthcare is a good thing, then we can start moving on to more topics. And I think I would say that the number one thing that matters is labor. That's why I'm so excited about unions, because unions are at the core fundamental level where you learn how coming together and putting all of your resources together to advocate for your own interests can be beneficial and can help. And someone's belief in a union functioning and being able to democratically elect union presidents that do a good job, that'll translate to their conceptualization of how government can work and how we can influence government and how government can do a good job as well to affect people's lives. So I think unions being supported right now is amazing. That alone makes me excited about a Democrat winning again, and I'm really excited to see where that goes with unions. And you see labor pushing for changes with things like foreign policy. And if labor can grow, we're in a really good position to create more change fundamentally throughout our entire system. But all of this change that we have the ability to do, all of this change, all the change that's a possibility, none of it, zero, none of it's possible. None of this change is going to happen at all if Trump wins. We're going to lose 10 years of progress, 20 years of progress, 50 years of progress if Trump wins. None of these improvements are possible if Trump wins, and things will get worse instead.
Sort of attitude about it where...
Which is why you shouldn't throw away your vote, and you should just, like, join the actual organizers and, you know, help us help other people. Don't just sit here on Twitter and talk about how good you are. I don't want to hear how much better you are than us, because we're so evil for seeing politics as it is.
Kind of, I welcome your hatred sort of attitude about it, where there's something about the offense from the Democratic Party in this moment that is crystallizing for people who was really actually fighting for them and who was aligned with them, that only becomes clear in the face of real opposition. And I do think that that is why, especially with the AOC video, this is a really clarifying moment, because you do see this energy and this fight coming from her in that video that I would agree we didn't see to that degree in her defense of her own colleagues, the language she used at the DNC. You also mentioned this, defending the Biden-Harris administration, saying that they were working tirelessly to end a genocide. And then she will go off screen and have these different kinds of conversations using softer language or using harsher language for Israel, I should say, using the word genocide the way that she did it on the debate stage. So she did this interview with this interviewer named Chi Osei, who framed the lead-up question in a way that I wouldn't have. But I do think it gives you a sense of the different kind of tone AOC will take in different contexts when talking about this. I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this.
Neither party's official platform, in my opinion, is good on Palestine. I don't think either party right now is doing justice to Palestinians. That doesn't mean that they're the same. I think that a Donald Trump presidency would be absolutely catastrophic. I mean, he's coming out here saying finish the job of a genocide.
There's a lot of people with our politics that are having a hard time getting there in terms of supporting Kamala Harris. How do you think we help them get there in November to beat Trump?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, first of all, it's important to emphasize how valid it is. We're looking at over 40,000 Palestinians that have died under Israeli bombardment. And the current U.S. administration has been continued to provide weapons to Israel that have been dropping on innocent Gazans. To me, when I process this, I weigh through all of the people living under extreme levels of oppression, especially outside of places even like New York. I think about the women that are bleeding out in ER rooms because they live in red states. I think about trans kids that are living in places where their entire families are trying to figure out if they need to pack up their entire lives and move somewhere else. We have to hold all of those things at once. And so to me, the conclusion that I've come to is having more people suffer to put on top of the already horrific suffering that's going on in Gaza is not something that I think I'm comfortable with.
So that particular line of attack, vote blue no matter who, Trump is going to be worse, does seem to be effective among a significant...
It's not just effective, it's completely correct. Are you going to ignore all of the issues she brought up there?
...part of the electorate. How would you respond?
I think that AOC is playing both sides. So she didn't give that response on the DNC stage, right? Because they had already probably approved her speech prior.
Yeah, because the DNC stage isn't the time to do that. It's like in Pokemon when you're about to go on your bike indoors and it says, I think there's a quote from like Professor Oak, there's a time and place for everything. That time is not now because you can't like use your bike indoors. That's kind of how it is. There's different ways you talk in different settings that are pragmatic for those moments. She's not going to go on the DNC stage. And you have to understand, there's Democratic voters. These are individuals in our country. If you believe in a democratic model, and you look at the US political system, there are voters who you need them to like you in order to have influence so you can create change. And if AOC cannot be popular with Democrats or like normie Democrats, then she's never going to be in a position to create that change. So you see her in that first clip talk about her true feelings and her very sincere evaluation of what's happening, the sadness that she feels, perhaps guilt, but she's not going to put so many individuals in an even worse position. She's not going to throw away even more lives. She's not going to take that risk of a Donald Trump presidency. But, you know, you have that idea of what her true feelings are, and then also you understand she's trying to be pragmatic so she can gain influence to enact the changes that she wants.
To her going onto the stage, but I think she's playing both sides. She's saying what she said to that gentleman there, that is to secure the younger voters, to secure the more progressive base and keep them in the Democratic Party. So she's playing their side to let them know, listen, I think both parties are not doing justice for the Palestinian people.
No, how many? Okay, she was probably giving a really genuine take there and framing it as her just trying to keep like the progressives in the party. Who all even saw that interview? That's a relatively small outlet. I would give the DNC spot, you know, as the part where she's trying to keep certain voters liking her. And then that private, well, not private, but that smaller podcast being where she's giving more authentic feelings.
Playing their side to let them know, listen, I think both parties are not doing justice for the Palestinian people. But then when she's on the DNC stage, she's saying that, oh, they're working tirelessly for a ceasefire, which Ilhan Omar, her own comrade, called her out about because that was obviously a lie.
It's been unconscionable for me in the last 10 months to witness my colleagues in this administration refusing to recognize genocidal war that is taking place in Gaza, to not see the mothers who have lost countless children, the babies whose dead bodies are being dug out, to not understand that working tirelessly for a ceasefire is really not a thing, and they should be ashamed of themselves for saying such.
So she's trying to walk with.
I don't think that really conflicted with what AOC said. And Ilhan's like colleagues are all Democrats. AOC is not someone who's denying that there's a genocide. She's not the one doing that. It's other Democrats. So pitting her against AOC there doesn't really make sense to me.
Within that lane so that she can still continue to evolve her political career in the Democratic Party, but at the same time still convince the younger kids that, listen, I'm still a democratic socialist and I totally get where you're coming from. I have to tell you that the Trump fear doesn't seem to be working the way that it worked in 2020. I do.
What do you mean the Trump fear? There's real things happening. There's so many organizers right now who are waking up at 6 a.m. and they're not done working until 10 p.m. Every single day because they are deathly afraid of what a Donald Trump presidency means for extremely valid reasons. This is the rise of American fascism. You can talk about the issues with the two-party system and Democrats and Republicans, but I'm still going to fight against American fascism. That does not matter. It does not matter to be morally pure or righteous in a system where someone is threatening to tear the system apart. The only method we have to enact positive change is going to be gone if this person is extremely successful. It's not just a fear. Oh, man.
Do feel like for whatever reason, and part of that could have been because of the pandemic and it was right after Trump's presidency. So people were like, oh my God, we got to get this guy out of here. What I'm hearing from people now is that they had more money under Donald Trump's presidency than they did under Joe Biden's presidency.
Oh man, the framing. Okay, nothing about this conversation so far has done anything to help anyone on the left or any like working class people. The framing here.
Presidency.
This is like Dana Bash framing.
They had more money under Donald Trump.
I didn't say morals don't matter. I just said morals are not the only thing that matters. I said morals, your moral obligation is to be effective so you can create change. And when you're actively putting your own self-righteousness and your own feelings, your emotions, when you're putting your emotions over making a decision that'll help people, that is not good. Morality does matter, but there is a sense of pragmatism you need to have in politics so you can see your morality better represented in the political system. And if you're just going to cry about the system not being fair, instead of learning how to grow power and to grow coalitions, both within and outside of the Democratic Party, if you don't care to do any of that work, stop talking online like you actually care. That's what I'm saying. Morality definitely does matter.
Trump's presidency than they did under Joe Biden's presidency. I am hearing voters say, I can't support a genocide. And I've told them, well, you know, Donald Trump is going to do this as well, too. And they said, yeah, but I think I have better chances under Trump. I don't get that explanation, and to be honest with you. But
yeah, that's a weird explanation. Who said that?
I think I have better chances. I'm going to do this is say, I can't support a genocide. And I've told them, well, you know, Donald Trump is going to do this as well, too. And they said, yeah, but I think I have better chances under Trump. I don't get that explanation, and to be honest with you. But
okay, I don't think that conversation actually happened. I'm pretty sure, because who would say that they feel like they have better chances under Trump?
I think that what people are seeing is that they're tying the genocide to the Biden-Harris administration because it happened under their rule, and they're the ones that are supplying the weapons. So some people believe that they can probably maybe work some type of negotiation out with the Trump administration, now that I guess RFK Jr. is a part of that as well as Tulsi Gabbard, although they're Zionists too. So I don't know why people assume that. But some people assume that there could be some type of negotiation there. I don't.
Who says this? Who are you hearing this from? Delusional people? I understand. So, you know, I understand someone personally affected by this. I would never begrudge someone for saying that they cannot, you know, they cannot bring themselves to vote for a party that's doing this regardless. So anyone personally affected by this directly, I would never begrudge them. But I'm very curious who is saying that Donald Trump and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK are going to work out a deal to save anything in the world when they've done, like, when Trump has one of the most, like, war hawkish presidencies of American history.
I've been trying to get people to understand, like, you have to break away, like, you have to support the third parties that are correct on that particular issue. And
Wait, how is Trump worse on Ukraine? Trump wants to remove all support of Ukraine. Trump has said multiple times that he wants... Wait, okay, you can correct me in chat, Spencer and Rooster, and welcome back, Rooster. But didn't Trump say that he'll let Putin do whatever he wants? Is that a real quote? Maybe it's misinformation, but I feel like I saw a quote where Trump's gonna let Putin do whatever he wants.
I think that a lot of voters right now are just not fond of Kamala Harris. We have to remember Kamala Harris ran for president in 2020. So this isn't the first time. Remember, they've tweeted her out there. I saw Kamala Harris speak. A lot of people don't know this. I saw her speak in 2020. She was very much fake. And it was very obvious, but she had a massive crowd to come and see her because this was right after corporate media hyped her up very much so. So I saw her.
You saw her in Boston or at that big rally? And where did she announce? California, I presume, in LA?
This was in New Hampshire. And there was a line like just wrapped around and around and around to go inside of a church in New Hampshire to see her speak. And there was a lot of excitement around her then. So I've seen this before. That's why some people may not remember. And then it just seemed like the moment she started to do more interviews, the moment she was on the debate stage, and of course, Tulsi Gabbard kind of delivered her one punch and knocked her out, all of a sudden her approval and her polls started to drop. And then she ended up dropping out. Because remember this. So all of a sudden, it was really weird to me that there was all this.
Supporting Ukraine is worrying about our own country. So the entire world is connected through things like trade, comparative advantage, different treaties. So we have NATO, we have different alliances around the world. One of the main purposes is maintaining democracy and making sure freedom is a thing, making sure that countries cannot just invade other countries. If Russia was just allowed to invade Ukraine and take Ukraine over, they would be starting a world war, okay? They would be starting a world war, essentially. The U.S. supporting Ukraine is preventing a world war and also is a return on investment that is very worth it. And we need to stop acting like there's not enough money to go around in America to support working people when we give $1 trillion tax breaks, $2 trillion tax breaks, $10 trillion tax breaks to billionaires. There is more than enough funding to do foreign aid in many countries to support Ukraine and also to give universal health care to Americans. All of that money does exist. That is a possibility. It's not a zero-sum game. We're not going to run out of, money because of Ukraine. And like I said, supporting Ukraine is extremely beneficial for everyone in the long run and in the short run. It's just beneficial in general.